G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our major sponsor, supshq.com.au. Use code BENS15 at checkout to receive 15% off on your next purchase. G'day, listeners, and welcome back to another very exciting episode that we've been building towards for a few weeks now. I'm joined by a good friend, a sort of peer, and all around just good bloke, family owner of Axiom. He is the co-owner of Zero W and a very well-renowned and respected Australian powerlifter, Matty Stenzel. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. Thank you. So good to be on this.
It's been a few weeks. Life is a little bit busy when you're doing so many things.
No, I appreciate the flexibility, man. Thank you very much for being patient with me.
Mate, I was always excited to have it, so we'll make it work. But mate, how's things? How are we?
Fantastic.
Yeah, sleep life we were just talking about with a new one.
Yeah, man. I had my last 2 nights. I think it was Tuesday. Had probably the worst night we've had. We were awake from 11 o'clock at night until that was the day starting. Just the way that it went. Yeah, she just needed cuddles the whole time. She's just over 1, and she's teething really bad. So you're just there for her. And then after that, we kind of called it. We're like, we need a new solution. So we got a new mattress, and life has been amazing for us both in the last 2 days. So we're always hesitant to say we've turned a corner because you never know if there's another.
Yeah, don't want to jinx it, right?
Yeah.
When do you reckon was the last time you had you and Mads got like an 8-hour night's sleep?
She's 15 months old, so not in that whole time. Like we haven't had without waking up, because even if she wakes up, a good night for her is, she'll wake up once in the night and all you have to do is put the dummy in. Yeah. But then you're kind of like just awake because you're trying to be quiet and not wake her up with this dummy, or make a noise. And so, yeah, I don't know. And then Maddie had a really rough pregnancy, and I remember she would just wake up like screaming with really bad calf cramps and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So it's probably been 18 months, man. It's been, yeah. But you just recalibrate, waking up twice a night. We're like, hell yes, I'm ready for whatever is coming at me today. Feel amazing.
I've only woken up twice. Today's a good day.
Yeah. And like those wake ups might be 20 minutes at a time, but you just still feel so good compared to those early days that every parent goes through,
Oh, and here's me complaining about my 7.5 because I woke up with a sore neck.
Oh, dude, it's just, you got to try not to lose empathy as a parent, because people will say things like that. Yeah. But you do just recalibrate. And I think there are also, these hormones that kind of activate in you, particularly for a mum in the early days. But I assume it continues where you're just like, I can operate on less sleep because I love this human being and I want to make sure she's good. And, you wake up and you don't feel angry. You're getting to cuddle her. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
As long as you frame it in a nice way. There's always bad days where you're like, okay. This is good. This is good.
We can make this work.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a while. So we're stoked to be around this corner, however short the corner may be.
Just ride the wave while it's there. Don't complain about it. Mate, all right. So I kind of want to jump into, and we had a bit of a little preamble just before off camera. You're someone that I see in a realm that people don't quite comprehend. And that is that you are busy, but you are succeeding in realms that I would say you're succeeding in what you do. And that's kind of what this podcast is really all about to me, is we talk about, nutrition, psychology, training, all the sort of nitty gritty fun stuff. But in the aspect of where I think we're going to go is how well you're succeeding, how all the things that you guys have going on, and the fact that you're still juggling a new family. And I think that's a turning point for a lot of people where we see, that's the end of the road, or if you will, it's like, well, now I've got my family and I've got the white picket fence. That's it. That's, my next 60 years is sorted. I don't see life that way. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people do. So my, I guess, point of the conversation here is going to be getting to know Matty and how we got to this point, and the fact that you're still kicking ass and there's plans to, keep putting big lifts up and keep training and keep doing these things and run and take care of your family. Like that to me is just something I think a lot of people, I don't know, not so much throw away, but they definitely, I guess, look at it and go, well, family's here now, that's it. And I think there's a lot more to life after that. And you're a living example that those things can still coexist. It's just a matter of, like you said, reframing, redirecting, pushing yourself, working as a team. So I think there's a very good chat here for a lot of people to understand kind of how it works.
Yeah, man, it's a pretty dynamic kind of thing to go through, because you do have days where you're like, all I want to do is be a dad. Everything's subtracting from that. If I have to train that's potentially, I'm not going to be there if she goes to bed early, and I might not see her for that whole day. But I was saying to somebody yesterday, like having a little kid, it's given meaning to everything, so much more meaning, where now I'm like, okay, well, we want to sort out our own, psychology and how we're operating together as parents, because we want her to see that parents do that. They're the kind of parents are, you're not just a fixed person. You're not just going to like keep on clashing again and again. You're going to sort your things out and grow. And I want her to see that. And I want her to see that people, as a parent, you go through a tough time, you can keep on achieving things. She doesn't get it now, but one day she's going to understand that, we're still trying to be people as well.
Yeah.
I don't want her to ever think that we gave up on stuff.
Yeah.
So even though, I love doing what I'm doing, it's actually given new meaning to it, where now I'm doing stuff for me, for her.
Yes.
In a way,
Yeah. It ends up giving, I guess, like, well, at certain points in time, we sort of had these conversations before. In certain points of time, we have different values in points in life. There's things that we value and things that we reflect on, and things that we desire, that, those values are quite different across different periods of our lifespan. And obviously, like once you start to have a kid, and I can't speak on this from experience, but more so understanding developmental psych and that sort of thing, you're obviously now reframing as to why you love those things that you do. The value behind them or the values that you have towards them are quite different. So, who Matty was as a powerlifter before the family came along, who you were as a powerlifter or a business operator before the family came along, who you were as a powerlifter before the business came along. Like, suddenly all these things have different meanings and values, different priorities in the hierarchy of your day, because there's so many things happening, right? So it ends up being, like you said, it kind of reframes things a little bit and gives you like a different perspective as to why you're doing it, which I guess for some people is lost. But like you said yourself, you're doing those things now for you, for her. And I guess that becomes such a powerful point that a lot of people think, like you said, that, well, there's family now, it's kind of, that's it. We're good. That's, the dream is here and that's it. But like you said, we're not trying to finish up here. We're not trying to quit things or stop just because there's a family. The family should continue to grow.
Man, I feel like it just has to. Even we have moments where we sink into, right now, like our daughter really needs us to be super present. And there's been times when, when she just straight up wasn't sleeping at all. And it was like, we were all in on just being present for her and taking care of the inside the house stuff and making sure life was pretty just smooth. And you scale back to like the minimum functionality, which the first thing to drop out is usually, your own food. Like she was eating like risotto with salmon and stuff, and we're eating bloody, I don't know, like tuna and rice, she's having, that sounds much the same, but she's having these amazing cooked dinners and we're eating like nothing, And so you sacrifice your own self. And then times, you start to feel like, okay, this can't be right. This isn't, like, I'm not feeling very healthy. I'm not feeling very good. And you realize that you're not your best self for her if you're not taking care of those things. So you've got to keep operating. Parenthood asks so much more of you than just taking care of this kid. You've got to take care of yourself so that you can do that job well. And I really look at my wife with that, Matty, and she's incredible with that. Just making sure she takes care of herself. It's a habit for me to just throw things away, and I went through that phase where I just didn't really do anything else except for just the minimum,
Yeah.
And I was pretty down. It took me a while to realize, like, oh, I'm really missing out on some of these things that actually make me feel like who I am. But Maddie's always at least pushing for me to be, to do that. And naturally, I think we all put ourselves last, but she's really good at recognizing for herself, no, I have needs as well. And I need to make sure even if it's just put a tan on or something like that, feel a little bit human so she can keep on performing as a parent and, in business and everything.
I guess it's kind of like well, it's not even an analogy, it's an actual fact, right? When you're on a plane, if there's something goes wrong, you're told to put your air mask on first, then help other people. Similar premise, right?
I feel like that's exactly what it is. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I know we're going to come back to that part of the chat, but I want to touch back a little bit further, because the Matty that I first met is a power lifter. He's putting up some big fuck off numbers. So let's go into, I guess, like not a quick prelude, if you will, but Matty getting into powerlifting and starting to become that side of a person. Like, were you always into training, heavy lifting? Were you more of a bodybuilder first? Did you led to powerlifting? How did you get started there and the numbers you got?
Well, when I first started, I was about 14, I think. I was going through a tough time at school. And like looking back, looking back, I was a pretty angry kid. I was getting in fights, I was getting suspended, and I could not control my emotions. And a lot of it, in retrospect, came back to I had really bad gynecomastia as a kid.
Yeah.
Which I assume like a lot of people might know what that is who are in the bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
But it was just a pubertal gynecomastia on one side, and I lived in a beach town, I lived in Lennox Head, and I could never go and do stuff everyone else wanted to do. I just felt super self-conscious, and so I was just really emotional, and I just didn't know how to process it, you know. And so for me, I was just getting in fights and trying to, I guess, like preemptively attack anyone who might make me feel shitty.
Yeah.
So my parents were like, "You need an outlet for sure." And we found this bloke who, well, my parents did. They set it up. He was a cleaner. His name was Ron. He was a cleaner at the shopping center where my parents had a business, and he ran a powerlifting gym right near my school. And he basically trained me like one-on-one for like all of high school, just for free. It was like $5 a week to go there. He just took care of me.
Wow.
And, you know, this is a gym where I was too nervous to go into a regular gym because everyone's there to look good. You know, there's guys taking their shirts off, and I felt I was a chubby little kid with gyno. And I just felt terrible. And in this gym, these were like old powerlifters who just didn't care about their body. One guy had a massive hernia. Everyone had big power bellies. Like no one cared. It was just about what can you lift, and we did it as a team.
Yeah.
In all my years there, no one ever asked about this like giant lump that I had. It was pretty severe on one side, and no one ever asked about it. And so I just felt really comfortable. And so I actually sucked when I first started. I guess I was 14. So I deadlifted. I remember going to the doctor because I had a bit of a sore hip, and I told this doctor that I deadlifted and squatted 90 and deadlifted 100. And I benched 77 because that's what I weighed at the time. Those were my first numbers. And then I guess there was no one around. The sport was so small at the time. So there was no way to ballpark myself to know, am I any good at this? And to be honest, that's probably why I kept going. Because I didn't feel like I was crap at it. I was just like, oh, no one else is doing it. I guess I'll just run my own race. And time went on, the sport grew. And by the time the sport kind of got big, my training age was huge.
Yeah.
And just gradually progressed. And I moved to Brisbane to train at a powerlifting gym. And from there, everything got a lot more serious because I was learning from people who were doing newer methods, you know, not because we were running Westside methods for a long time, and came up here and people were doing Russian Shako programs, and it was a whole other world. So of specificity rather than just this conjugate style training. So my lifts eventually got up to, before the little one came along, my best squat was 380, my best bench was 212, my best deadlift was 340.
And those numbers, for people listening that don't quite comprehend, are fucking impressive. They are some big fucking numbers.
They honestly feel outrageous to me now, even, you know, like it's been a little while and I'm getting back into it, and I've done pretty good with deadlifts since, and even benches coming back. But I keep thinking about unracking a 380 squat, and I'm like, man, am I? Because I'm going to do a comp at the end of the year and hopefully be around there again. Yeah, I think that feels like a long way away, but that's it just gets there, you know.
Mate, so because I saw you recently. I think your recent dead was a 340, or was it a 360?
No, I hit a 380.
380, yeah, wow.
Yeah, but I was using straps, which in powerlifting you can't do, so we don't really mention it as like an official lift.
Don't humble yourself. You just lifted a 380 deadlift.
I was really, really happy with that. It's something I've always wanted to do, is chase down like a big strap deadlift, because grip is like my big weak point with deadlift. And so I thought, well, I don't have any comps on the horizon. I'm just going to lean into something fun. And I actually needed that to kind of reignite the fire. Like I don't feel like I can do a whole comp right now. That's a big thing to ask, but I can go hard on this. Yeah. And it's made me really feel like, okay, this is what I'm doing it for. This is fun as like going for a big lift again. And it's made me kind of lock into a couple of comps at the end of the year. Good. It's good to hear.
So we go back, we're looking at you sort of going through and starting to really develop. I think you really touched on a big point here, is that there was no one really to gauge on to decide whether you were good or bad. So I think a lot of times people start a craft and they'll sort of look already, especially now in the age of Instagram, which back then probably wouldn't have been a big thing for you. In our day for rugby league, that definitely wasn't a big thing. There was no there was no training reel footage. You didn't have like your highlights posted on your Instagram every single day of your games and wins and tries. So it was very much like, who else was in your position in your area? How was your team doing versus theirs? So it was like, even rugby league days, it was obviously competitive as to positions, representation, all that sort of jazz. And I think that leads to a lot of people pulling out when the skill gets a little bit harder. In the sense of skill, I guess, there's that point in time where just being good isn't enough. And you've got to get to that point where you continue to push to hone your craft and get better and better. And some people will look at that and go, well, I just don't have that versus X person. So what's the point? And, they'll pull out and stop. For yourself, I guess, not having that, I don't want to say competition, but not having that comparison has almost enabled you to keep going and not sort of hold yourself back or anchor yourself to, well, my dad's only 200 pounds when this guy's is 260 at the same age. You didn't really have that because that, I guess, that social media presence, that other comparative essence isn't quite there. You're just able to go, well, I got 202.5 this week, or next week I can get 2.5. I can get maybe 207. I can microplate it and just gradually progress over time. Like that, in a sense, allowed you to, as you said, build that training age without a lot of interruption.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think if I, especially at that time, like being a young kid, and if I was quite fragile, I think if I had have felt like I suck at this, I was a pretty low self-esteem at the time. I think if I hadn't have had that kind of clear runway and no one around me trying to put pressure on me of, the guys I was training with, they had no limits for me. They were really great guys. They always made me feel like anything was possible. And I would look at these top people you see in like Power magazine and stuff, because seriously, there was no social back then, really.
Yep.
And so you just look at these like hard copy magazines you would look up, or look on Westside Barbell for like the newest comp results, and you'd think, wow, that's incredible. And there's nothing in the middle. I can't really tell.
Yeah.
There's nothing local. There's no one even on a national level that I know who to compare to. But then it did change over, and that social media time did come. And particularly when I moved to Brisbane and I was surrounded by people my age who were doing it, my mindset changed from, okay, I'm like this big fish in a small pond, to like, holy shit, these guys are friggin' awesome at this. And I can probably do that too. I'm actually really, I've never really thought about this, but I'm glad that was my reaction.
Yeah.
Compared to, oh my God, like suddenly I'm exposed to these incredible people who are doing things that I couldn't do. So when I came to that competition, I went to a competition in the Sunny Coast in 2012, and I moved to Brisbane maybe 6 weeks later, because this competition, I'd never lost before. I'd only ever won. It was just me against me, or maybe a couple of other young people. And I came third at this comp, and it was really hard. And these guys were awesome. And they were doing things I didn't know about. They were wrapping knees differently. They had really specific techniques and stuff. And so I moved up like 6 weeks later, because I was like, I got to be around this.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that was my reaction, and that they were, happy to teach me the stuff they did, because that took me up to the next level, was being actually surrounded by friendly peers, not competition, just like we all want to get better together. Yeah.
That's such a like an important point. I think that, how you approach that loss is a determining factor. Like it's almost like whether you're a competitive person, whether you're, bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, whether you're in other sports, when you get to a point in time where eventually you're inevitably going to lose. And, you might, for me, it was a season, I was 14 and we lost every game in that season. I'd never lost like that before. I'd gone from winning grand finals at 12, 13. I was, representative sides and stuff like that. I never had that where I couldn't change the game. And I would spend hours talking to coaches, presidents of the clubs afterwards. I'd talk to our development team. How do I win? And why does this suck? And I would get to the point where I'm like, I hate this. I can't change it. And it's frustrating the fuck out of me. And I never really sat with it until I've had a couple of other conversations previously to this one, where it clicked in my head just how much I didn't like losing, and then how much I wanted to take control of that and change it. But from there, it led me to a point where I realized I never want that again. And I want to only continue to get better and put myself around better people that will make me better, and ensure that, you're going to lose games every now and then, but I'm never going to lose a whole season ever again.
Yeah.
And, that ends up being the case. But, I think there's a lot of people where that situation drives them away, or they throw in the towel, they quit and go, oh, well, just rugby league isn't for me. Powerlifting isn't for me. Bodybuilding isn't for me. The most exciting part that I see in every single person that succeeds at life, or has these, high bouts of performance and success, is the loss drives them to be better. And they look at the bigger picture and can be, almost be able to reframe it as a positive, because they can go, well, like you said, I was a big fish in a small pond, but I'm only if you're only surrounded by people operating here and you're just above that winning, well, that's where you're going to stay. Suddenly you go to people that are operating here and you're like, oh, fuck, I've got to itch this up a little bit further. You start to get better whether you win or lose. Like you just naturally have to get better.
After that, though, after that change that happens where you start being exposed to people better than you see them as you've got a choice now where you can either see them as like a peer, and I want to, get better with these people, or even like, I want to beat them, but it's not keeping me up at night,
Yeah.
Or you can just you got to try and find a way to continue to just take those choices and make those decisions that lead to a better performance over time. You can it's really easy to get focused on what other people are doing once you have been exposed to that. And I've drawn success from both of those pathways before. I've done really well based on, I really want to beat this dude.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit corrosive,
Yes.
because it's such an uncontrollable thing. You don't know what they're doing because they're working just as hard as you. So I think the best results I've ever gotten came from a place of, I'm just going to make sure that when I get up there, there's no stones left unturned.
Yeah.
And because that's what I would have done anyway, had I been really focused on beating this person. But at least this way, I'm in control of all variables, whatever happens now. I did what I could do. And I can be happy with my personal achievement, and the chips land where they land. But yeah, I've definitely drawn motivation from both of those before. And the one that I really want to stick with, and it's a little bit addictive to get onto the interpersonal thing. Like, I want to beat this dude.
Yeah.
It's a little bit addictive, but I've found it like a little bit personally corrosive, because you have all this extra energy output that you're doing, thinking about what somebody else might be doing. But that energy is literally wasted. Like, it's doing nothing. It's not a productive way to spend your time or energy.
Well, even if we look at the motivational spectrum, it becomes like, yes, it's, the love of competition. Almost like, if we look at intrinsic motivation, you can love something so much that you're doing that it becomes a part of it. Like, that's what you do. That's why it's intrinsic. But once it's a love of competition or the sense of defeating someone else, then all of a sudden it's placed outside of you and it becomes an external factor that you have no control over. Like you said, that's just someone now that, what if they're not even considering you? You're spending all your time waking up and thinking about this person. Like, I got to fucking beat this guy. And I'm checking Instagram to see what their lifts are. That's just psyching you out before you even get into the meet, or before you get on stage, before you get on the field. And this person might give two fucks about who you even are or what you're doing. And they're just doing their thing. And all of a sudden you're exerting all this extra emotional energy and stretching this emotional mental bandwidth that you only have so much in a prep on someone who has no idea who you are. Or even if they do, in sports like ours, there's not much that you can do anyway. It's not like in rugby league where you can fucking tackle them and, all of a sudden they're out of the game and now the rest of your team can finish off the play or some shit like that. There's not much outside of you just doing your numbers that you can do. And I think a lot of people get caught up with that. And that's where the negative sides, I guess, to our sports or interests kind of come up, if you will. In bodybuilding, it's a very similar premise. You see people all the time talk about like, I'm going to beat this person. Then if they don't, it's judge's fault and this person's fault and politics and all this sort of shit. The reality is, on the objective criteria that they have, you subjectively just didn't fit it. Is that a bad thing? You decide. You tell me. Like, you get to decide. That's either a thing that you now have to get better and you can improve those weaknesses, the feedback they give you, or it's everyone else's fault but yourself, and fuck bodybuilding, it's toxic and negative. That's it. That's literally the only choices you really get. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the side of that you want to be on is the one that doesn't care. The one that's like, there's someone that wants to beat me and I just don't care what they're doing, because if you're thinking about getting an edge, not caring is the edge. Because if somebody else is spending that time being concerned about what's going on, it's not going to change their lifting, provided they don't quit, but they very may well quit because of the stress of this external energy that they're exerting. So I think I've definitely learned that one as well, which is, just don't fall into that trap, because it feels like a great source of motivation, but it's a little bit short-lived,
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of looked at it in the sense sometimes almost like not roadmaps, like checkpoints sometimes. Like I've done things in ways that I know are very toxic. When I say it out loud to people, it's very, very neurotic. Like when I say to people, they look at me like there's something wrong mentally. But, I'll have these moments where I literally will compare myself from that person's eyes and how they see me, and therefore how I'm viewing myself through their lens and what they're picking apart as my weakness. And I go, I've got to fix that. So if I can see through their eyes how they're viewing my weaknesses, that's the stuff I've got to fix. And I can use that. But at the same time, like, that's purely because I know my sport is such a my appearance and my structure and my weaknesses are literally what's on display and judged versus, rugby league where you can look like a bag of dicks. No one cares. As long as you know how to throw a 20-meter spiral and you can kick a ball and you can make a tackle, those are the things that count. The objective measures in rugby league for talent are very different to your appearance. Whereas I guess in our interest, the weakness and the talent is your appearance and your physical structure. So, it kind of gets a bit that way for me. And I'll use that in some instances as like checkpoints. Like, has this come up against this person before? Has my body part improved or that sort of thing? But yeah, like you said, it's never like I'm staying awake thinking about this person, thinking about me, that sort of shit. It's like, okay, on stage right now, if I were to look at me from that judge's perspective against this next person, what are they seeing as my weakness has to come up? And that's like, you start to use that because now it becomes my race. I go, in the future, I need to work on my shoulder cap. I need to work on my quad sweep. I need to work on my back thickness because that's in my head what the judge is seeing versus me against someone else.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of a healthy way to turn that around because that person's going to be looking at you and thinking about the weaknesses you've got. If you can internalize that, but that's the trick is like, how do I bring my locus of control back? To factors I can control.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
But so moving from there, you're dominating powerlifting. What was your like? Have you done pro raw?
Yeah, I've done pro raw a few times.
Pro raw. Yeah, how'd you go there? What is the pinnacle that you've reached where you're like, I'm actually pretty good at this?
I think the best comp I've ever done was just actually a local meet in Brisbane. I did it right before Matty got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 6 months after Pro Raw 11, which was the last one they had at the actual Arnold's Festival.
Yeah.
And I came second there, but it was super close. I just missed my last deadlift on grip. Mm-hmm. But I had an awesome comp, hit massive PBs. I was feeling so good after that. And I think that was definitely my like happiest moment because there was just so many people around. I did everything right. I didn't miss any lifts except for that very last one. My prep was perfect, except for I tore my calves from wraps.
Yeah, right.
Which is a thing that can happen, but you just have to kind of keep going. It sucks.
I love how that's the definition of a perfect prep for a powerlifter. Oh, it's perfect prep, but I tore these things. Bodybuilding, then we probably wouldn't call that a perfect prep.
Yeah, look, it's not good, man. Like my calves felt like wood. They were so hard and swollen, but and they hurt. Like putting those knee wraps on, we do them pretty tight to get some rebound out of them, and I could hurt. But you just kind of dig deep. And those last few weeks are always hard. You just like you've been in wraps. There's been this tightness, this constriction around your leg for 12 weeks, 15 weeks now, and you just got to keep going. Mm-hmm. Naturally, it just creates this inflammation over time. And but that was where I was like, yep, I even succeeded to hit all my squats, even though my calves hurt. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. And then I got all my benches, and then I got my first 2 deadlifts, and I was coming into the last one, and I was like, oh, I've got this. I missed it, but I made weight perfect. It was just all my friends and family were there. It was just really good. It was a really peak moment. Thousands of people watching. And then hit a bit better comp later on in Brisbane. But that one just meant a little bit less to me because being in front of all those people at the Arnold is just so cool.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was so I did the 2019 Arnold's, and like though I look shit. It's very bad. I was in my first ever season, so you're expecting to look way worse than you do as you progress.
This is the same one, by the way. That was the last one, at the Arnold's.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure I know. Was that the one where Crozier was up against what's his name, Seb? Was that the one?
That's basically like a forever battle between them. It happened again and again. But that was the one. Will pulled 400 that day.
Yes, yeah, I remember that because it was the first time I've been around exposed with I was with Dean, Dalton, all that sort of stuff, and then obviously Dean's crew was all around there with the powerlifters and Will and stuff, and I'm like seeing these numbers. I'm like, fuck, my back is so broken these days. Like, I just can't do that. But fuck, I wish I could. And it was just such an impressive numbers. But like you said, that experience to me was like, it wasn't even my peak performance. Like I've gone on obviously to win an IFBB gold in my division, which is cool. But like that was always a goal for me. I said it when I first got into bodybuilding. I'm like, within the next 5 years, I have to be on the Arnold stage. And you get up there and you see it, and it's like, Steve Weinberg was in the judging panel, who's like the pro head judge in like the New York Pro and the Olympia and stuff like that. He's in there like the front judging panel. I'm like, this is fucking sick. Like in front of all these people and being in this situation where thousands of people have paid money to come and watch this. And we're like, even across our sports, I guess you're the 1% of the population that can do what we do. And like that to me, I was like, that's fucking unreal.
It is weird. It's weird to be up there and you've got all these people who are watching, they're all athletic and fitness related people coming to the Arnold Sports Festival. And I guess because you always surround yourself with people who are doing what you're doing, sometimes you can just forget that what you're doing is even good,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's been times like, I get there and people were watching us warm up and they were kind of like, wow, at the warm-up weights that people were doing. And I was like, far out. It just gives you some perspective that when you are totally immersed in these worlds, you can just forget, actually, there is a reason this feels hard, because it fucking is.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And it's a rare thing to be able to like commit to this stuff. Hence why there's only 15 people doing it.
Yeah. I mean, Doherty has this conversation every time he has a show when he gives the pre-warm-up like speech, and it's basically like for every one person that's here, 10 pulled out. And it's because, when you really think about it, regardless of the hobby, once you get to that extremity level, there is only a certain percentage of people that can finish it off. We all know how to diet. We all know how to train. We all know how to get lean or lift heavier numbers. But the emotional and mental toll over time, like to really perform consistently every single day, where your friends are going out drinking and partying and socializing, and your parents saying, hey, just have this dinner with us on Sunday night. All those little things that start to add up that would have thrown you off track, you're choosing not to do those things. And that takes its toll over a period of time where, kind of, I guess the point he's making, a lot of people can't do that. They can diet for 6 weeks or they're 75 hard, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, let's get back on the beers. And, for us to do it 365 and then really dial it even further for a prep is unheard of for most people. But like you said, we're in these crowds, I guess, or these worlds where it's so normal that you don't realize the extremity of it.
I think learning how not to quit is the number one thing with longevity, which and powerlifting and bodybuilding are longevity sports. You don't just do one prep and do the best you've ever done and be like, cool, I peaked out, I'm never doing this again. Like your best one will always be your last one.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yep.
Unless you're starting to go into masters and stuff, but if you do another one, you will have improved on that.
Yeah.
Inevitably. But so quitting is the only reason you will eventually, get worse. So you've got to somehow make it a lifestyle that's enjoyable, that's sustainable, that isn't robbing you of your energy. It actually brings you something. And I think that's kind of, again, tying back into that motivational side of it. As long as you can be coming from a place that's growing you, not feeling like it's destroying you. You're not feeling like emotionally, destroyed from all the thoughts and all the you're up at night looking at a video of something again and again and again. You're like, what could I have done better? That's stopping you sleeping.
Yeah.
You'll eventually, it takes a toll. These things take a toll, and you'll quit. And quitting is why you won't ever achieve what you were ultimately going to. It's cool that he brought that up and brings it up every time, because it's so true.
Yeah, it's honestly like his I don't want to say his catchphrase, but pretty much every prep I've been backstage and every time I've coached someone backstage, I've heard that exact sentence. But it's a saying, like it becomes repetitive because it's true every single time. But like you said, there's a point in time where some people just can't. They really just can't do it, and it's why I push so many people off bodybuilding. As much as everyone probably sees me harp on about it and talk about bodybuilding's positivity, I am so against so many people doing it, because they do it for the wrong reason. That doesn't become love or internalized positivity. It just becomes this, I need to do it for XYZ Instagram photos and, get on stage for this reason. And mum's, dad's, uncle's best friend said I was the leanest person you've ever seen, so I want to do it. And you have none of that internalized factor that's actually positive. Now, all of a sudden you feel like shit because you're lost, and your eating problems are terrible, and all of a sudden it's bodybuilding's fault and everyone's to blame for your loss. I just see so many people actually not benefit from it because they don't do it for the right reasons. But then the ones like we said, where delayed gratification, longevity, prolonged goal setting, long distance goal setting is so beneficial and positive that it has impacts on your life regardless. Like it just benefits your life. And that was kind of, I guess, the point that's going to lead into my next point of the conversation is the people that I see succeeding with these benefits of these sports. I also see them do well in things like business or self endeavors or like their personal life outside of that. And I guess that's where we come into Axiom, is that the skills and I guess the traits required to succeed in powerlifting or bodybuilding, I see just as useful and required or necessary in business. And you guys have arguably one of the most reputable remedial massage clinics in Queensland. Very few that I've heard other people in different states talk about. So arguably Australia is coming up to be. I've had people that don't even know that I knew you. They're like, oh, you should go see these guys at Axiom. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? I'm like, what? Like, people message me like, oh, have you trained at the Zero W? Like these guys at Axiom. And I'm like, huh? I mean, it's Matt. Awesome. Yes, I've been there. What do you mean? But like, have people that don't even know that I know you recommend to go see you from different states. They're like, oh, you got a sore back. Like, why don't you go see these guys? I'm like, I do. What do you mean? Like, I see them almost weekly. But that is like that essence of, I guess, those traits, those skills that you have in your powerlifting career have crossed over now to your business career.
Yeah, man. It's I definitely think the crossover that I've gotten is like for my own self, like the willingness to just do a lot. Like I know that getting better takes time. And so when I first started, I was like, I really felt like I sucked. You finish a course, a PT course, and you're like, man, okay, so I'm legally allowed to do this, but I suck.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just, again, in retrospect, I think I did the same thing as I did with lifting, which was I searched out for mentors and I practiced, and I was lucky enough to find some who were really, really willing to share skills. And then I got confident enough because you need to be good enough to attract people who are going to let you get better, with this kind of thing. Like if you can't just say, hey, let me just do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. You have to already be, has to be enough efficacy to what you're doing that someone's going to say, yeah, well, let's do it. And so I was really lucky to have mentors, and I guess I searched for them, but I was really lucky people took me on. And then, just following up doing and being hungry for more knowledge with it, because coming from a lifting perspective, I got into all this stuff with sports massage and treatment because I had problems. Inevitably when you train, you do enough of the same thing and you're going to end up with some kind of repetitive strain type problem. It just is how it is. Even if you do everything perfectly, things are going to occasionally get a little bit funky, and you want to be feeling better than that. And so, I just wanted to basically figure out why I was always hurting. And so that took me down this whole road. And then after that, I was like, oh man, there's more I can be learning. Like you can solve a lot of problems with this stuff. And so I just got super hungry for answers, and and then lucky enough to find people around me, including my brother, who's willing to come work with me.
Yeah, man, it's such a relevant point or a relative concept to continually to want to seek to be better. It doesn't matter what you're in or what you're doing, but being able to continually seek progress and development and understand that you potentially suck. Whereas I think a lot of people will egotistically think like, like you said, you finish PT Cert 4 and you're like, I'm going to go coach my first powerlifters and elite athletes. Like, I remember for ages when I did my first PT course, like I went straight on to do my ASCA level 1. I went and did like my business course. Like I did all this stuff where I'm like, I know who I want to work with. And these elite people and these elite lifters. And I worked at a gym that contained mostly a demographic of like generalized populations of, 20 to 40-year-olds. And I had all these like periodized, mesocycled, percentage number based like spreadsheets that I made. And I'm like, these are fucking awesome. I'm going to use these. Not one person used them. And I was like, no, they suck. It's them that sucks, not me. And I was realizing like, I have none of that reputation. I have none of that backup evidence. I have none of that proof that it's like come to bend for that coaching. And, I was just excitable and naive, but it was that point in time where I'm like, I need to get better. I need to learn more. I need to pick up more. I need to know more. I need to understand people better, get to that point where, like I said, I'm continually just seek out mentors and want to improve. And the same thing just crossed over through my training. I guess I'm not sure if I would argue it is, but for people to grow up with some sort of competitive career or competitive exposure, sports, powerlifting, rugby league, soccer, AFL, whatever it is, like, swimming, there's that essence, I guess, if you go about it the right way, that's going to carry you through the rest of your life, where you realize that at a certain thing, when you start, you suck. And even if you have like natural talent, it's not that much. At a certain point, honing craft has to become a priority in order to succeed and get better. Otherwise, you just stay the talented guy who never did anything. And I think that's such an important factor that a lot of people just don't understand, is that I guess that's where it's maybe come from, is that competitive nature at a young age, where you realize very early on that I just have to work at this to be better. Some people might have a better edge, but if I work at it, I can improve. And I'm finding that to be a similar concept with a lot of athletes I talk to, or even business owners that were once athletes. The skill crosses over, that recognition that I sucked and I need to improve.
I think physical training is and weightlifting is probably the most pure example of this, because you physical training shows you that you do suck, and then you do something, and then later on you don't suck anymore. Whether it's like you look different or you've just gotten better. It's an inevitable process. It does work if you follow it. Even a simple progression of just do a little bit more. Today I did 5 push-ups. Tomorrow I'll do 10. It just works, and you think, oh man. I think for some people, not everybody, but it starts to tick over, where you're like, oh, okay, so this works for my body. Can this work with other things? The kind of the first exposure to a growth mindset that most people have is in the gym.
Yeah.
Which is why I think there are so many PTs who turn into like motivational coaches and stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh man, I've got this feeling. I finally found this this mindset that can, through my training, that can push me forward. And so they just want the world. Everyone becomes quite evangelical about spreading the message of personal growth. And so you do see a lot of crossover from the PT world straight into life coaching and stuff, which is cool. But yeah, it is definitely for me where it all came from. This idea of I suck. Holy crap, I don't suck anymore.
Yeah.
I can apply that to other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I suck at getting clients from my business. Oh, now I don't suck at getting clients from my business. I put in time to learn marketing and get results.
Yep. Yeah. Or even like you said it before, just for you meeting clients where they were. Like if you had all these extravagant spreadsheets and you've got like someone who's like, dude, I don't even know what benching is. Yeah. And you're like, well, the giant mesocycle thing is going to be they'll be overwhelmed by that. You got to meet them where they are. But you learn that through a process of self kind of just reading yourself and having a hard look at what you're doing and assessing. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of led us to a point where, like people are coming to Matter now for that level of intensity, and that like, that I want to be that next level athlete or the next level client. And that's cool. But my first run at coaching as more of a sole trader and a sole business and that sort of thing, but this is like 7 or 8 years ago now. It was such a point in time where I'm like, I'm coming out of playing elite level of rugby league. I'm like, I want to be that guy. I had my car accident. Well, I can't play rugby league anymore. I want to coach other people like me. And, you get to a point like that Dunning-Kruger kicks in where you're like, fuck, I know so much. And then you realize very quickly how little you know. And like, oh, it turns out all those YouTubes I was watching were just wrong. Like looking at sarcoplasmic hypertrophy wasn't relevant. Looking at this wasn't relevant. Reading these bodybuilding.com forums, like just wasn't relevant to the people I had. But, now, like you said, it's nearly a decade later and I'm able to go, oh, actually, I can, I guess the essence or the philosophy of where I coach is kind of, I can build this person to an elite, but I've got to meet them here. And, without that experience first, I might not have thought that. But again, it's willing to say that I suck. I need every mentor I can get my hands on.
I really appreciated something that you told me a few weeks ago, which was if you think about where you want to be, where you are now, where you want to be, look at the tasks, the daily things that might lead to that. As long as you do more than you don't do of those things, you will inevitably get to where you want to get. It's a matter of time. It just really resonated. I think that was a really good way of pointing out that, the inevitability of progress, but you need to actually look at what am I doing and what am I not doing. You'll arrive there if you're patient with it, and you can speed it up if you want to be. But that came to my head just now, and I can't remember why I brought that up. I hope that was on target.
That's good. That's a good point, because it's kind of it's in essence, I guess I combine, like, I guess this is a relevant point. Is like I take from several people when I read psych and I read philosophy and stuff. I take from a lot of people in how I coach other humans and try and run myself. In that, something Peterson talked about was that you can have what you want as long as you are specific about it and actually state it. A lot of the time people will just, no, I want the white picket fence and I want the dog and the wife, and that's all I want to do for the next 60 years and work for a job that I hate, and they're miserable. And it's like, well, no, you don't. That's not what you wanted. If you actually state what it is you want, now you can decompartmentalize that process into checkpoints. And now you can actually look at the tasks required. And you can go, as you said, as slow, as fast as you want. Am I ticking these boxes today? Is that taking me towards my goal? If this choice is taking me away from my goal, do I want to make it? And that inevitably starts to lead you towards a route of momentum, I guess, that is going to take you to that development of skill or knowledge or passion or business or client reach, market, whatever it is that you're doing that you're trying to get better at. From a business aspect, I guess for Axiom or Matter, we're looking at, how do I reach the right person I want to work with? How do I find the people that I want to work with so that they can find me? How do I, learn marketing better? How do I learn strategy better? How do I coach the results that I want so that those people seek out me for those results?
Yeah.
Am I doing those things every single day? And what can I do to, break that down? It just becomes almost like a GPS. Like it becomes a route that you just seek now. And you go, well, am I staying on the route? Am I staying on the right road? Yep. Sweet. Keep going. It might be 5Ks an hour. It might be 100Ks an hour. Obviously with like yourself, and I guess where we go next is like, you've now expanded from powerlifting and Axiom. You've now got, well, a relationship and a wife. You're now looking at Zero W, and you're like, well, I can still reach these things. It's just that at certain points of life, the effort you can give is different. Can I give 100% to powerlifting now? Probably not. But when I go in on powerlifting, I know now that, you've got the support network, you've got the systems in place, you've got Tommy, you've got your brother, you've got Mads. There are probably going to be people behind you that support you. Go, you have this 15 weeks to go all in on powerlifting when you're ready. We'll take care of the rest. And then when the time comes, it might be Matty's turn to go all in on something. It might be Tim's turn. You're like, hey, I'll be there for you to do the same. I think like it's just a matter of owning and looking at that GPS, that map, if you will, that course or direction, and going, how fast can I go? It's inevitably going to happen for someone like yourself where it's going to happen. It's just at this point, I might have to back off it on the cruise. At the next chapter, though, I can go fucking 150 Ks an hour. I'm on the autobahn. I'm sending it. And then after that point, it might be a little bit of a back off again because, there's ebbs and flows in life. But as long as you know where you're going and you continue to work, you can put that time in. It's just inevitably over time, it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. We want to have another kid next year, and so I see this year as a chance. We have a window here where I actually do have an opportunity to have a go at something. And you've definitely got to. When I was younger and before life was a bit more complicated, even when I was training the most that I was training, and me and Matty were really free with everything. We were able to just, maybe I'll do 2 extra appointments today because, maybe I was so worried about training that I forgot to schedule someone an appointment. I'm like, oh, just come in late. We'll just do that. That stuff is no longer an option.
Yeah.
But Matty and I would just go out and get grilled after that because we knew what we could eat, and it was just a simple thing we could do together. It would still bring us together. Now you can't. Everything needs to be much more rigid.
Yeah.
But inside of that rigidity, it's given freedom where you're like, okay, well now I know what I this is my actual window. It has to happen in this side of this window. But yeah, you do have to pick your battles. There are times when, definitely at the beginning when we first opened the gym, because our daughter was born maybe a month before the gym opened.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, which was a strategic error. But that's the way it all went down. And we were sleeping, man, like 20 minutes at a time. It was crazy. We had to hold. She was lactose intolerant, so when we didn't know that, so breastfeeding was making her quite sick, and so we were just up all night. I was rocking her, and there's some photos of me back then, and I just look like sick. I look super sick, and Matty too. We weren't sleeping, we weren't eating, we weren't able to train, and that at that point, I think it took me a little while coming into having a little one. I didn't have an expectation. Yeah. I didn't form a proper expectation. I was like, oh, we'll just, whatever will be. We'll be quite flexible with it. But I think I should have aimed more towards it's going to be super hard and like really talk to people about what that might be like instead of being like, oh, it'll be okay. We'll get through. Because in reality, what happened was I kind of held an expectation that I'd be able to maintain this side of my life where I'd be able to work and, I would never have to cancel an appointment if we were having a crazy day with the baby, but that did happen. I had to cancel people and had to go home because Matty needed help because Millie was just straight up not doing anything. Or she needed some Panadol and I needed to go get that. Or she had a fever and I had to take her into hospital one time. And I didn't hold it in my mind that those flexibilities might be something I would need to have. Training, I kind of, in a way, I was like, yeah, I'll keep training, sure. But no. Maybe if I had said to myself, you can train 3 times a week for 45 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
But instead I was like, I'll just do a program. I'll just get it done. It'll work its way out, but it doesn't. Because like you said, at that phase of life, there wasn't flexibility at all. But it took me a little while, longer than I'm proud of, to learn that actually you need to back off of things and be hard on this right now. And that brought so much peace that we were then able to create a structure and then start clawing back little things that we need for our own selves, including, going on a date night and we both go to the gym, and Matty, can actually come into work and be there and do some of the stuff that she needs to do rather than just work from home all the time. Yeah, but yeah, having a proper expectation was a mistake of mine. I really thought, I didn't plan it. I didn't know what kids were like. I'd never been exposed to babies too much, and so we'll just get through. But just getting through looks like not doing heaps of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't ready to accept that. So that created a bit of a something that we won't repeat the next time, is to have a realistic expectation so we can still hit those tiny little things you need to do to maintain your own, mental and physical health at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like that it's something that you can't really comprehend until you do it, I guess. But where that rigidity would have been useful is knowing like, okay, this is our schedule and this is our time slots and this is where things have to happen. I have this window between clients, or maybe you don't take one extra client 3 times a week. So you have that hour to go training session, 10-minute shower, get ready for my next client to come in. Those things where having that rigidity would have given you that disciplined freedom. And, where you've probably got away with in the past from not having a family and a business or a second business to run, you've had that more loose, I guess. It's almost like it's just panned out. Like it's luckily it's well panned out because you've had that freedom. And now you it's almost like you'll perform better and you'll get to even that next level, because you'll realize how much more important that rigidity of structure and schedule is. And you'll realize, well, I actually have 45 minutes in these windows only. So I'm not on my phone. I'm not going to talk during my training sessions. I'm not going to have time to fuck around with clients. It happens. They're in, I'm out. I get that training window. That's it. I might have my 9 clients a day. Anything less than that or anything more than that is too much. Got to watch the kids, got to go home, take care of the family, make sure the gym's operating. You're now creating that I guess, essence of freedom out of the discipline of having it so rigid. And I think
that's exactly it, man. That rings so true for us. Even down to little things. Like if I used to cook my dinner, I want like a fresh dinner every night.
Yeah,
we live in a tiny apartment, and the smoke alarm might go off, and it has, and sometimes it wakes her up if I cook dinner at nighttime. So I was kind of just like, at nighttime I'd be like, oh man, I can't cook. I'll just have Wheat Bix with protein milk in it.
Yeah,
and that sucked, and it wasn't what I needed to eat.
Yeah.
So I was kind of constantly having these shitty dinners and not feeling good about it. And then I was like, or just like accept that you can't cook it then and just make it and microwave it and do it that way.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it took me a little while to like wake up to the fact that no, this isn't changing. Like that she always is going to be, we're going to be trying to put her down at that time. The smoke alarm's always going to potentially go off.
Yeah.
Stop trying to like force the old way of doing things. It just isn't the way it is. And once I got around that, and I feel so much better now. It came quite easily to my wife. She really understands this stuff. But I think because she's got a little bit more experience with kids, she used to run the daycare.
Yeah.
But I just really didn't know. Maybe it'll just stop being like this soon,
But I mean, like, I guess, like, in a sense, you've managed to get yourself that, well, I guess, like you say, by the end of the year now, there's going to be a few meets you sign up for. So now you've had that chance to set yourself up, get that discipline in, get that freedom set up, get that structure in place. You know that you can now progress in the future. You're going to get to that chance to be on the platform again and still run your business and a second business, and you're going to look at a second child. Like, that's all the things that you love to do now, and you're going to be able to do them. Like, that's not a small feat in the level that you're at.
Yeah, man. It's like, we talk about having a second one, especially. It's like a daunting thing, but we really want to have our daughter to have a sibling. And but yeah, with that rigidity has definitely come possibility of future expansion, which at the beginning, in the middle of like everything that was crazy, you're like, man, how are we going to get back to the old ways? And I've really realized that I used to rely on the ability just to be like, oh, I'm happy to train it till 11 because I can, but that's just not how it is with a little kid. That's a young person's way of thinking who doesn't have kids, and it's a hard work mentality for sure.
Yeah.
But hard work doesn't get you through when it's not about you anymore. And so rigidity and coming down to working off of her schedule and figuring out how that's going to work for us. Like we work around her new schedule, whatever that may be at the time. Yeah, I am. It's a big shift for me because I always did operate off of, I'm just like a really hard worker and I really love training. So I'll just stay late. I'll just do it when it's after hours. And that's my way of plastering over most organizational issues in my life. But that's, yeah, not how it is anymore. Now it's like,
Yeah.
you can't plaster over things. You need to get things done when they need to get done.
But I guess in a crazy enough sense, like, sort of going back to how you said, when will this go back to being a bit more normal? I guess the exciting but also evolutionary fact is that it's not going to be. The new
Yeah.
normal for you guys now is that you're more disciplined, you're more structured and organized. Mads is probably loving that because like Matty's on time, he's on to a point now, he's got it down to a T. That's only going to get better and more demanding of you because you open, let's say you do a second Zero W or another Axiom location, or the second child comes along. That time restraint becomes even more, and that demand for rigidity and structure gets more important, especially if you want those other aspects of life to be just as fruitful and successful. So, though it was, I guess it's every essence of development and progression is that you go through the fire to come out the other side better, right? Like Peterson talks about is like you walk, people walk through hell in order to get to heaven, but most of the time they stop in hell because it's hard. It's like, well, why would you stop here when it's the hardest, when on the other side of that is where it's better? You become a better person from that struggle. So, you've set up now basically from this lack, I guess, of foresight is now the plan that won't happen again. That's a new level of you now that will never happen again.
For sure. Yeah, I think maybe you brought on at the beginning, some people when they have a little one, they think, oh, this is it now,
Yeah.
But for me, it's not an option to be unorganized now. I have to be, and I'm still, it definitely is a thing for me. I learning how to manage my time and stuff, and not having that reaction of I'll just do extra because I can. It's just me. It's my time, and I don't mind. It's all good. That not being a potential solution anymore, it has been super challenging because it's the way I've lived my life. But I'm super grateful that that's been my reaction to the new forever life that we now have, rather than like being pissed off about it and just wishing it would go back. It's just not. And like we laugh about that all the time. Like it's just never gonna go back to the way it was. But I am really happy and I'm super proud, honestly, that's been my reaction is, okay, get better. Like you can do this as well.
Yeah.
But you've got to, that has costs, which is actually a happy cost to pay. Like I'm grateful not to be that like that anymore because it's pretty draining to always just say, oh yeah, I'll just do that extra thing now because I fucked up. Now that can't happen. So you just got to get it right and it feels good. Yeah.
It becomes one of those points, I guess. And like when we see in the high succeeding, the CEO, the elite athlete kind of thing, high conscientiousness is a very important trait. Like it's a very, I guess, leads to success personality trait. And we know in the research, like not all personalities fixed. There is a point in time where you can develop things over time and certain personality traits succeed. It's almost like exposing yourself to these situations is making that personality trait have to come up. Like, I know I can be structured. I know I can be rigid. I know I can stick to a plan or a program. So this schedule is no different to that. It's just a program that I have to abide by and continually progress to get better at. And now I've all of a sudden got more time and I'm more organized and structured. And this will lead to better expansion in the future. I can now include my lifts and get better at my training, and I can grow Zero W. I can, look for a second location, whatever it may be. That exposure to such hardship, if you will, is enabling you to get better. And it's going to force those better qualities out of you. And now all of a sudden you don't have the time for the shitty ones. Not so much shitty ones, but you don't have time for that old Matt who would have been a bit more flaky and free and loose with things. Now it's almost like the powerlifter Matt who's like every number has to be hit, every session has to be done. It's now also in your personal life where
I love lifting. It's easy for me to stick to those things when I have a target and a goal because I just fucking love that life. There was never enough motivation for me to get organized with other stuff because there wasn't something appropriately weighted, something on the other side. And now I've got this little girl that I want to spend time with and I want her to be happy and, I wanted to see that I'm working hard and achieving things and we've got a great relationship together and our house is a nice home and it's not crazy messy all the time and representative of this like internal stress, and so that's been the motivation required for some probably much needed personality shifting. But it was always going to take something like that. But I am really grateful that she's been that for me because a part of me was like, oh, am I just beyond redemption with this? Because I have only ever shown that kind of diligence with with one thing or two things really with Axiom as well. I'm just happy to go at it and learn because I'm super interested. I love it. I'm really fixated on getting better at that and getting better at lifting. But most other things, I've always been a little bit just nowhere near as regimented. Nowhere near. There was never enough drive. But yeah, she's definitely made real life, normal life, and becoming more procedural about things. Something that I'm very motivated to do, and which is having awesome impacts on actually everything. So it's been good. She's actually been a driver of like even more. Some of the stuff we've been able to achieve since she's been born has been awesome. So yeah, it's having kid is tough, but it can be something that's really super positive as well. Yeah. On things that you would expect to suffer, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a really good like final question to wrap up on, because I know, well, you know, you guys are busy. Is where you are with your training, where you are with business, where you are with the family. I don't see you as a father, nor do I see Mads as a mother who will stagnate, slow down, stay still. Like you guys are always continuing to seek to grow and develop. And you know, I see Zero W growing. I see Axiom always busy. What piece of advice, I guess, from your high level of powerlifting, running 2 businesses, now being a father, what's the, I guess, biggest piece of advice you would get to anyone listening who is down that realm of, I'm about to have a family, but I want to continue my training, or I still want to take care of myself. I want to succeed and push further. But it's sort of the taboo that you have to give those things up to be a father or a parent. What's the biggest piece of advice you've got there?
Oh man. It's so easy just to speak to the lesson that I had to learn with this, which is have really every kid's different, and you've got to lower your expectation around what they're going to need. Or raise your expectation around what they're going to need, and you've got to put them first. And you think you're doing that, but you've got to do it before they arrive, and be willing to say this phase for now. The first, they call it the 4th trimester, the first 3 or 4 months after the baby's born. That's fair. It's a whole other thing, especially for the mum. Like the kid can't survive. They should still be in the womb, but it would kill the mum to be there. So they're still completely needing, you guys, and so being there for mum and just having minimum standards, really understand that, okay, if I get 3 30-minute sessions in, that's going to even just maintain me so I can keep some momentum, because I didn't do that. And then I had to build myself back up. I had to start walking again. And, in terms of training, I had to really build back into it. There was no slow jog that I was able to maintain. I was fully stopped. I did not train for months and months. We didn't eat. So I think, just taking care of those minimums for yourself at the beginning, and because you can build on that momentum, but trying to find it again is really hard. So I really like what you said earlier. I think is a really good piece of advice, is just be aware that there's phases of things. And if the time will come when you can push for that again, but you need to be ready, have everything, have all your baggage packed for that when it comes, because it will arrive and you'll be ready to go hard again, but you don't want to be unprepared for that when it comes. So life comes in phases, and just kind of embrace that and be ready for what's coming up.
I guess in essence, if we put in like training terms, we know that the maintenance volume required for trained muscle is not a lot. Yes. And if I guess you pull it back to that, in that sense of like, during this period, instead of being 100% powerlifter, 0% father, I'm at maintenance volume for powerlifting. I've got to give that energy now to fatherhood, to being a parent. Yep. And that's a perfect way to kind of look at it, that obviously we know that if we don't train at all, muscle will atrophy and strength will go away. We lose what we don't use. But if you at least find that maintenance volume of, 3 sessions a week, 6 sets per muscle group tops, superset some shit and get in and get out, do something that will hold what you've got, it makes shifting gears from second to third so much easier than going from neutral to now going to take off.
Dude, 100%. I'm going to maybe listen to this podcast again in like, a year when this baby's coming around, and I'll try and keep this in my head, because I certainly didn't. I just thought to myself, I'll stick to that same program, which was like 2-hour sessions. Just totally ridiculous, dude. It to me now, if I have friends who are having kids, I'm like, hey, listen in right now. Don't fucking do
Shut the fuck up. Sit down. Take a knee.
100%, man. Join FitStop or something. Just let someone take care of everything for you. Yeah. Because you're not going to have the capacity to make decisions. You won't be your best self for a little while. So Yeah, just do the minimum that you can at the beginning. Yeah.
Minimum effective volume for life for that period of time, and direct everything to, I guess, like a really finishing point is I look at it as segments or domains of our life. I know we talked about that in that catch up we had, and it's something that I give a lot of my clients. Life has domains, and I guess a really easy way to put it, it might be for yourself, or for me is a really easy example. It's bodybuilding, it's coaching, it's uni, it's basically those three things. That's pretty much my life. That's what I get to do. So at certain points of time, like I know that I need to go all in on uni, and I'm at hold volume for training, and I need to dedicate all that time and energy there. I know that when it comes to bodybuilding, like I'm in a prep phase, literally everything is at that. And these two things are, I suspended my degree so that I could keep pushing this prep, because I knew that it was going to require 150%. Business took a hold phase where I wasn't trying to draw in more clients because I couldn't take care of them. So that essence of knowing what domain has the priority, and you can pull back the energy, I guess, on those other areas for a period of time so that it can be redirected somewhere else. We only have, if we look at it, 100%, right? We have 100% to offer in effort. You can't be at 100% in everything. And the more you try to do that, the less you perform at everything else.
Yeah.
So I guess like the easiest way to kind of put it is, for yourself, where you might have had Axiom Zero powerlifting, you now also have father or parent or, family, given Matty as well. That period of time is, I can't give 100% to these two things. I've got to dedicate this here. So, 10% here, 10% here, 10% here, this gets 70, because that now keeps you whole. You're still doing all the things you love, but that domain has priority. It's not that these things get nothing. It's just that this domain takes priority for this period of time.
When you've got structure in it like that you can really divide it into the percentages required. And I think that's something that you're a very unique person in that way, where you really hold yourself to standards. And I think people in your team are like that too. You built that with them. And it really helped me to talk to you and have visual frameworks of that, because if you don't have that, for me, if I'm thinking about how my life was, pre-baby, it was like, okay, if I was to write it on paper, I'd be like, yep, so I'm putting, 50% into training and 30% into family and whatever's left into business. And actually what it was nothing like that. Like my priorities looked nothing like that. I just would have said that because it felt like what would have been good. There's a lot of bullshit spent time too, like stuff just wasted nothing time, whether it's scrolling or just fucking around, just mistakes that you make because you're not organized. And so I think, you're actually capable of, a lot. The whole 100% is a lot of time. It's really, you're capable of so much if you just cut out bullshit. And we just don't have bullshit anymore, man. Like we don't even really watch TV anymore, basically at all, because we put the little one down, then we spend time catching up, and then we go to sleep, because you go to sleep fucking straight away because you never know what's going to be like tonight. And then you wake up, we've got this hectic morning routine and we love it. But, dead time is not a thing. We don't really have much of that. And so we're capable of actually effectively being good in levels that we weren't even at before. Because there was so much time being just down the drain. And it's forced us to become much more efficient. But I love the quadrant stuff. It's something that we've been kind of talking about a little bit, is like, in terms of making sure we're not, for myself at least, I'm taking care of my training now, but I'm really conscious that I need Matty to also do that for her, and to be there for her, to encourage her to do that for her, because she's so willing to, put herself last, as she's just a beautiful person. But
Mate, I mean, we could keep talking for hours, but we've both got so much to do, and I appreciate your time, because we have covered plenty, and I know I've wanted to have this chat for a little while, because I see so many people getting to that point where family does come along, and all of a sudden those goals get put on the back burner, which then get burnt out, and they fizzle out and never end up actually happening. But it's always like when the kid's of age, I'll get back into things. And I'm like, no, I see people that are doing both. All the people that I still talk to that are, succeeding above me in positions have families, and they're still doing the things they love. It's just a matter of like, how do we make that happen and continue to succeed?
For sure.
Mate, I appreciate your time. I'll let you go.
Thank you, sir.
Just quickly, how do we find you? I know we've got Axiom, we've got Zero W. Where are they? How do we find you?
We're on Instagram. We're Axiom Performance Recovery on Instagram, and Zero Brisbane. And that's us. I mean, I'm personally, I have my training log on Instagram, just Matt_Stenzel. You can look at all my, there's a lot of baby stuff there too. Cute little photos of my daughter. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, man.